Hello, everybody. Welcome to GK4FREE, the podcast where we talk about goalkeeping and out there that maybe don't have access to information, or maybe those that do and want to learn more about the position. My name's Hunter Gilstrap. I'm here with the co-host Will Marshall, and today we are going to be hanging out with a good friend and fellow goalkeeper coach, former professional player as well. Currently the goalkeeper coach at the University of Pittsburgh on the men's soccer team, as well as actually, I don't know how many people will know this now, but he's also working as the goalkeeper coach for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds pro team this season. Mike Behonick. Mike, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks for having me on.
Great, man. Great. I'm so happy to have you. I think this is going to be pretty cool. We are going to get right into it today because I think we do a better job when we try to stay sort of on topic, and the more we can keep me from talking, the quicker we can go. Not that it's that important that we go quick, but don't want to waste your time because I know you're a super busy guy, especially these days. So, Mike, why don't you – that's so weird calling you Mike. I don't know that I've ever called you Mike.
Yeah, I definitely never have.
I always call you Behonick, and I feel like everybody else calls you Behonick, so probably just do that.
Most people probably know me as Behonick anyway, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so when you introduce yourself to, like, someone new, do you say, hi, my name's Mike? Michael?
No, Michael Behonick, but I think it slowly fades away. The first name and the last name kind of sticks because it's different.
Yeah, it's different. It's not even the easiest name to say, but I mean,
no,
I bet how many teachers.
Most people butcher it, but it's okay. As long as I know you're talking to me, it's all good.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. We're definitely talking to you today. Even though we're having crazy technical difficulties before this, but we'll do our best here. So why don't you give us I don't know if you can do this, but if you can give us like the 5-minute, kind of who is Michael Behonick, a little bit of your story and, how you got to where you are now. And I mean, you do so many things and you coach in so many different arenas and have so much valuable experience that I don't know if you can do that, but I'd like to hear you try to do it.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll start, in college, right? I went to American University in Washington, D.C. Was fortunate during that time to train almost every summer with D.C. United. Got drafted by them in the 6th round of the MLS draft. There is no more 6 rounds of the MLS draft, so I probably would have been undrafted if that was the case. Spent a short stint at DC United, but really started my pro career at Charleston Battery. Spent 3 seasons there. We won a championship, USL championship. Maybe it was called the A-League back in those days. Spent 3 seasons there before moving on to the MLS again. Spent a year with the New York Red Bulls. After that time in the New York Red Bulls, ended up with the Virginia Beach Mariners. While in preseason, went defunct. Owner ran out of money, and then ended up with the Puerto Rico Islanders with Colin Clark, who was the coach of the Virginia Beach Mariners at that time for 3 seasons. Playing in the CONCACAF
really
Champions League in the USL.
This.
Yep.
I don't know if I ever told you this. Did I ever tell you that I almost also played for Virginia Beach that year? Like I went on trial before they had a little mini camp before the season started, and I went in there and they made me an offer, and I ended up going to Cleveland instead. But we're close to.
I didn't know that, but that's it.
Teammates on a team that didn't happen.
Wow.
We went 6 weeks in preseason without getting paid, and then it went away. So spent 3 years at the Puerto Rico Islanders with the CONCACAF Champions League, which was an awesome experience there, playing in different countries, playing in some pretty high-level competitive games against MLS teams and teams from Jamaica, Trinidad, Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama. Got injured there, which ended my career. Broke my hand pretty badly, and that ended my career. And then was fortunate enough to get my first job at the University of Virginia as an assistant coach and goalkeeper coach there. Spent a number of years there with George Gilnavach and staff, and then moved on to Penn State University from there. Spent almost 3 years at Penn State before Jay asked me to join his project here at the University of Pittsburgh, and I've been here ever since. The Pittsburgh Riverhounds called me this summer when their goalkeeper coach had to leave town, and asked me if I'd join for the remainder of the season because they didn't have a goalkeeper coach. And with the uncertainty of whether we would have a season this year, I've joined them, and I've been with them for the last 7 weeks, and will be with them for the remainder of the season while, also doing double duties with them while doing my, I guess, day job, as you may call it, with the Pitt men's soccer, and, where I've been here for the last almost 5 years. So it's been busy, as Hunter said, but in a good way. Also, I've had some really interesting experiences working with the youth national teams over the last couple of years, which has been a very, very fortunate situation there of being able to be called in and represent your country and work with some of the best coaches and players in the country. So really fortunate to be part of that as well over the last couple of years.
Yeah. And then the little experience that I've got to have with that, I did a camp back in 2017 and then got invited to do another one, tournament trip in 2018, and it wasn't able to go to that one. But my only, opportunity that I've had there was because of you. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you opening that door for me. And, had I decided to stay in this thing kind of full go, I would want to continue to pursue that. But I'm enjoying my new life and my new world and doing these new things and still keeping my toes in the water of soccer right now with the Riverhounds youth academy stuff. And that's about all I got time for.
I am trying to fill your big shoes here as a Pittsburgh Riverhounds goalkeeper coach with all the success that you had. So hopefully I don't mess that up.
Well, I appreciate that. But, you and I both know that guy there that's running the ship does a pretty good job of getting his goalkeepers to perform well, no matter who they are, which is crazy. And we'll maybe talk a little bit about that if we have time at the end. But kind of the thing that I really want to touch on with you, and hopefully down the road we can have you back on again and we can get into some more stuff. But kind of specifically right now, I think as we're building an audience here, I think a lot of our listeners are youth athletes or high school goalkeepers or, young goalkeepers with aspirations of wanting to be a college goalkeeper. And you're at – everybody knows the ACC is the highest level of college soccer, right? So and now Pitt, it's taken, 4 years now, but I feel like you guys have really finally established yourself as a top performer, in the ACC, which is exactly what Jay Vidovich did at Wake Forest. And, I think it's just been part of the progression. And now Pitt, you guys are on your way to being that. And potentially, I think, could be the top team in the ACC this year, if not this year, but certainly soon. And maybe that's hyping you up too much, but it's been fun to kind of watch from the sidelines. So I feel like you've got a great perspective on, what the makeup of the goalkeepers that you're looking for, and especially now in this really strange, you guys are in this extended dead period, right? Recruiting's weird. It's different than it's ever been before. So just like to touch on some of those things a little bit. And I guess we'll just kind of start off with sort of, let's say you're looking for a goalkeeper, 3 years down the road, or class of 2023 or 2024, something like that. Like, what's going to pique your interest? What are going to be and I know this is something that goes so many different directions, which is why I think it's going to be kind of a fun discussion, but some of the attributes you're looking for in that ACC level potential pro goalkeeper that could come in and really perform well for you guys.
Yeah, and I think recruiting is a loaded question, because each program has different needs and wants. I think each coaches have different needs and wants of what they want. I think the interesting piece here is Will's been on the inside of what we have. Will,
we didn't even mention that yet, leaving Will out in the cold.
I meant to say that. No, it's all good. It just
we'll get there.
When we took over, Will was on the team and, was a part of us for a couple seasons before he moved on. And I think that's another interesting conversation to have, with the conversation that Will had when he did move on. to
Yeah.
Westchester, and maybe honest conversation that him and I had of what may be best for his future. With what I saw or what we saw here at Pitt, and how it's all played out for him. So we can go into that another time. But I think the biggest thing is what's the fit in your locker room, right? What's the fit
Right.
in our locker room? And I think Will has seen that in the transformation in his 2 years here,
Absolutely.
in the start of the transformation. But the biggest non-negotiable for me is the character piece, right?
Right.
Who you are, the character you bring each and every day. All of those intangible things are something that is going to be the beginning and the end of the recruiting process, in a lot of ways. So, what person fits in your program, what person fits in your locker room, and the character piece of that person is the first thing. If they don't pass that test, then it doesn't matter your ability, it doesn't matter your mentality, it doesn't matter everything else.
Right.
That's an important piece there. In our locker room, in any locker room that I've been at the highest level, whether it's the Big Ten, the MLS, the USL, the ACC, in all the locker rooms that I've been around. So, that's first and foremost what a lot of people, have to understand, because we can see you play and we can understand your talents, but we're going to do a background check on you in terms of, what you're like every day, what you're going to bring to the table, who you are as a person. That's an important piece. So I think that's one thing that always, we can talk about ability, we can talk about talent, we can talk about what you're doing on the field, but, who you are as a person is a big piece, the first big piece. And then there, I think moving on from there, it's who fits your game model, right? I look at it very, very easily. You can see it at the highest level. Take Pep when he joined Man City. He had Joe Hart, who's a fantastic goalkeeper, but he can't play out the same way that Pep wants to play. So we moved from Joe Hart to Claudio Bravo, who he had a relationship with and understood. And then obviously, he's moved on now to Ederson, with the way that Ederson can play out of the back. It's part of his game model. I think Liverpool achieved a lot of success, with bringing in Allison, so you look at it at the highest level and what most people see each and every day in the EPL. And that's an easy explanation there is,
Right.
How you can expand what you want in terms of your game model, but then you look at the individual, right? What individual aspects there, whether it's the tactical side of the game, the technical side of the game, the physical side of the game, there's psychological side of the game. Those are kind of like the four things that most people look at. Talent is obvious, right? You can't be, being recruited to top programs if you don't have the talent initially. So how does the fit happen there? I think those are other things to consider. And as most people know, the recruiting side of things is not just straightforward on talent and character. Then you're talking about grades, you're talking about finances, you're talking about when the goalkeeper position fit. Do you need a goalkeeper in a given year? Do you have a true number one? Is there an opportunity to compete for the number one spot?
Yeah.
Are you a goalkeeper that's going to need some development? And I think from the coaching staff, it's the honesty part of what you need, who we are, and you kind of lay out the cards as they are, going into the program, that you want the right fit and you want the person to be there for the right reasons. I think that's the biggest thing, because especially in our position, it's one person plays, two people sit the bench. It's probably the hardest position out of anything, because you can't go from a center back to a right back. You can't go from a center forward to a winger. It's one spot for three goalkeepers, sometimes four goalkeepers, depending on your roster size. So, I think there's a lot of layers that you have to filter in there as well.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think a lot of people, when they listen, they're expecting to hear, okay, well, we're looking for a goalkeeping profile. We're looking for a certain type, whether that's a physical type or a style of play. And I know style of play, like you touched on with the your EPL example, for you guys, that's a big part of it as well. You need, just with the ball at your feet, right? That's a big piece of it. So this is a little bit off script, but what are some of your most common channels? I mean, are you ever, basically evaluating talent that you have no relationship with, or are you typically going through your network? I know that's you're a relational guy. You got a huge network.
Yeah, I think you're doing both, right? Your job as a staff, as assistant coaches in any program, is to find the best talent, no matter where they are in the world, no matter if they're in your city, no matter if they're in the United States, or really it's a global game now. There's so many American and international players in the college game, whether it's the college game or the professional level, right? We've been at both. So yes, you're going to use your network because you trust your network. But I've gone to many tournaments where I'm just trying to scour the fields for talent. Some going in,
right.
But the recommendations off of people may not be exactly what you're looking for, and you may find somebody at the field that sparks your interest, and then you now have to, as a coach, do your homework, right? As you said, in this COVID era, it's difficult because you can't go watch a practice, you can't go watch a training session, you can't go watch a game. You've become a little bit more of a video analyst, so you have to have kids tape training sessions, tape games. I think the biggest thing is the highlight tape will give you a little bit of an interest, but you have to then go into and watch training sessions, game film. For a goalkeeper, sometimes you go watch a game, you may stand there and do nothing. So you almost also want to go to their training sessions if possible, in our position, to see what actions they have repeatedly that you can see, because you may show up to a game and you may not be able to see anything based on the opponent they play. You always want to go to a game where they actually may lose, because they'll have their most actions, and you can see, what's their reaction to a goal they've given up? What's the reaction to a bad play and action they've had? How do they make the right action and the right decision based on the situation at hand? So, as we know, our position is sometimes it's one play that's going to make or break the game. You're going to be the hero or you're going to be the GOAT. So you're looking at different actions in different situations there from that standpoint. So yeah, it's not just your network. Your network is always, you're trying to expand it, but if you're doing your job the right way, we're going to as many tournaments and places that we can, and we may be going to see player X, but we are going to come away with player Y. So you never know who's watching, and you never know who's there. So you have to always perform.
Two things on that. One, crazy that the software's changed, over the last 4 or 5 years. You basically, it was different for me when I was coaching at the pro level. Basically, I had access to watching any pro player anywhere in the world, and I haven't been around it as much now in the college scene. I'm assuming you guys are almost getting to that level now with the higher youth leagues, and you're able to have almost level of access to watching games and events. Always first thing I would go to, first thing I always wanted to see a new player that I wasn't familiar with. I always immediately went to the goals they conceded. And I'd watch 10, 15, minutes of maybe all the goals they conceded as a pro and maybe in college. Just for those things. I wanted to see the mistakes they make, because nobody making mistakes. I wanted to see how they responded, what their body language looked like, all that kind of stuff as well. So that's really interesting. Interesting. I don't know if that's part of your process, but I want to go back to the scouting piece, the part where you said there are still events where you show up at the field, maybe not now in this COVID time, but where you show up at a field and, you discover a player that you like, or you're there to watch someone and maybe you find out that you didn't like him as much after seeing him in person. From that physical, because I think that's a little bit maybe different being at the top tier of college soccer where you guys are versus your middle tier or your Division II or your Division III. where a lot more of those coaches are going to be doing live scouting and taking chances on players they don't know, they don't have a relationship with. So there's a big performance piece, you know, for a lot of those goalkeepers out there. And I think a lot of the ones that are going to be listening and watching this. So I want to go two places with that. First, I want to go, you're on the field, you're watching goalkeeper on field 1, you turn your back to him, and field 2, and there's something over here. There's a goalkeeper. You're like, wow, you know what? There's something special about this kid. What are some of those things that might stick out to you that would really make you start to sort of scratch your head and say, huh, I want to dig into this kid a little bit more. I want to see if there's something here.
Yeah, you look at it, right? You see that kid play. You're looking at, you know, their confidence. You're looking at maybe their bravery. You're looking at how they react to certain actions. You know, you're looking at, you know, what's the action that happens? Are they making the right decision? You know, like you said, maybe it's a game model where you build out of the back. How do they play out of the back? What's their leadership, right, of their team? How do they help a teammate instead of put down a teammate? You're looking at all of those different intangible things, along with the aspects of making the saves that are important, right? And then if you see enough, you're trying to go find out, okay, when's their next game? And hopefully you're showing up for the warm-up. As goalkeepers, I'd always show up for the warm-up for a goalkeeper I'm going to watch. Absolutely. You know, how are they taking that? Because they may not have an action in the game. Following up, trying to find some video from the coach, from themselves, maybe find a credible, you know, network person that you know in that area to say, hey, Hunter Gilstrap is in the goalkeeper coach in Pittsburgh. Do you know this player? Have you seen him? What is your thought process on them? And you know, you try to look at all your resources in many ways, because you may only see that goalkeeper that one time to spark your interest, to try to see them another time. And it may be the one time you see them that turns you off from the way their body language is, or you know, what happens in that match that you say, yeah, no, I don't think this is the right fit for us. And that's another thing, is the person has to be the right fit, right? It's not always black and white. Recruiting is subjective, right? It's not by numbers. It's not by that. I may like somebody a little different than Hunter does, than Will does. You know, and that's just personal preference, right? So those are some things. It's not that you're not a good player. It's just maybe that the fit for University of Pittsburgh is not the right fit for us, or me, or Jay Vidovich and the coaching staff here. So, you know, that's part of the situation as well.
Yeah, you kind of already touched on the other side of the coin of that, like things that might turn you off. And, you know, I don't think we got to go into a ton of detail about that. I think a big message for anybody listening out there that this is, you know, a dream or a goal for them is, you're kind of, especially now with social media and the way all this stuff works, like you guys do your homework, you're gonna vet players. And I remember my dad, when I was growing up, he was a football coach, college football coach and player, and that was his background. And he was always telling me that, look, you're always on interview. You know what I mean? There's never, you can't let your guard down, right? And you got to make sure that your character actually is what you're putting out there. Right. But you never know what interaction you may have, what exchange you might have, when someone might be watching. You never know who's watching. You know what I mean? And it may not even be that you have some interest in a player for University of Pittsburgh. You may never see them in person, but you might know very well that coach, you know, in that same club that's known this kid since he was 10, who's going to say, well, yeah, Johnny's very good, but you know, he thinks he's very good and he's not hard to manage and you can't coach him. So I don't think he's going to be a fit for you. So I think that's just really important.
I think you can't hide right now in the world of social media, in the world of video, and that you'll be your actions and the way that you do things, you'll be able to be seen no matter what, you know? So how do you consistently be your best each and every day? How do you, you know, show up and compete, and, you know, what's your mindset, what's your mentality each and every day? If I'm not getting a video from you, I'm getting it from somebody else. having conversations with other people. We're very fortunate enough in the ACC to have a large enough budget to see almost everybody. I would probably say see almost everybody, not almost, but see everybody that we're going to bring into the university if it wasn't the COVID era. But some other universities don't have that those resources. So how much video you can put together. I would also say if you're really interested in a program, going to their ID camps, getting in front of as many coaches as possible, if you can. Financially it is, always the kicker. But, if you really dream to go to University of Pittsburgh, right, find a way to get in front of Michael Behonick, Jay Vidovich, Rich Costanzo. If you aspire to be at a different university, make sure you get in front of those coaches, if not once, as many times as possible, and keep them in a loop of when your games are. Send them game films. We do a lot of work making sure that we're vetting the right players and the right people to bring into the program.
Yeah. And I'll let Will talk about this in a second, kind of any input and feedback he has or questions you might have for you about that. But I'll be 100% honest in that the only reason I was able to play at Clemson, that was above my pay grade. That was a level I probably shouldn't have been at. I was recruited by other kind of mid-major D1s and probably should have ended up somewhere like that. But only reason I ended up there is because I spent, from the time I was in the 8th grade, I would go to their camp every single summer, and I would show up at their games, and they knew me. They knew my face, and to the point where I was probably pretty annoying to them along the way, because I was such a fanboy, as a 15-year-old kid. But and then I came to camp, and they saw that there was something there, and enough to offer me a spot as like a recruited walk-on. So, and that was enough for me to get my foot in the door and start my whole dream, that ended up in a pro career and coaching and you name it. So,
and I think
there's no excuse not to, like you're saying, not to get in front of these coaches.
And I think the one thing there that most people don't understand also as well is a recruited walk-on. Most people walk into a university thinking that they're going to come in there on a full scholarship. There's 9 scholarships usually for 30 players on a team. So the expectation can't be that of a scholarship. It's the expectation that you understand sometimes financially you may have to invest.
Especially as a goalkeeper, I feel like.
Especially as a goalkeeper, because you're probably going to have some money into one goalkeeper and the other 2 guys will be on no money or financial aid or a situation. And sometimes, no matter how far the recruiting process goes, it always comes down to the financial aspect of it, of whether the family can afford to send that person to a certain university or not, and whether the family can invest money, because a full scholarship is very, very hard to come by, and most people don't offer full scholarships at the highest levels, because you cannot give 9 scholarships, full scholarships, then you'd have 21 other players you'd have to bring in of quality that would have to be able to pay their own way. So that's usually divvied up between different players. So, that always becomes the last part of the recruiting puzzle. And a lot of times the main part of the decision of whether the kid can attend your university or not, fortunately or unfortunately.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's tricky, and not a lot of kids understand that, especially when you've been a stud on your development academy team, or even had some youth national team experience, right? And sure, maybe there's a chance that you could get a full ride somewhere, but typically, if you want that top tier level, you're going to have to go in there and you're going to have to earn it. It might mean 2 or 3 years of very little money and redshirting and waiting for your turn.
I think that goes back to the character piece of what we look for is, it may be the guy that's starting on their high school club team, academy team, wherever you're playing, but you may not walk in here and start, so there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road. We all know that this position is tough. You have to have a strong mindset because only one person plays and two people don't. So you have to keep competing and you have to keep training and you have to keep pushing yourself, and you may or may not ever get on the field. So, when you're talking about the right makeup of the person, showing up every day, competing, and, to be a player in the ACC is a lifestyle. It's not just roll the ball out and kick around. You have to watch what you eat. You have to come back in for additional sessions. You got to watch video. You've got to recover. You've got to do your schoolwork. You've got to show up at study hall. And that's just not the ACC. It's a lot of college programs across the country. So, there's a lot of adversity you're going to hit, and how you deal with it is an important piece for most coaches.
Yeah, well, I feel like that kind of sets you up almost kind of perfectly to, kind of interject with some of your own experiences here and kind of how that worked with your relationship with Behonick here. And, because there are two sides of this, and there's the piece that we've touched on here of, goalkeepers that are going to have to go, maybe get on as a 3 or a 4 and, wait for their turn. And maybe that doesn't even happen. So what do you think about that? What insight can you lend to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole last 5-10 minutes of what we've been talking about has been almost indirectly describing what I went through. And so, I mean, even like you said with Clemson, like getting in front of the staff there and going to their camps. I mean, like I did the same thing when I was in high school. And I mean, I didn't really have a clue what I was doing in high school until we met throughout, in the goalkeeper academy. And you were the keeper coach at Pitt at the time. And I was going to Pitt camps, and Pitt was where I wanted to be. Those where I wanted to go, but it wasn't in the cards per se at the time. And then an opportunity popped up in January of my senior year, and it was that a recruited walk-on was going to redshirt. It was kind of a semester by semester basis. And then
let me just interrupt real fast too, because this is also touching on what Mike just said is, the reason that opportunity opened up was because there was another kid who'd come in his freshman year, and it was a no scholarship situation. And for him, it was, it was too much for his family financially. He came in and gave it a shot, but that was, and that's touching back on what Mike just said. And because that was sort of too much for them and maybe not the right fit, he decided to leave and transfer out. And then that opened the door, very late door for Will, for your opportunity. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And so, I mean, then, from there, like I was lucky enough to stay the entire 4 years, that year and a half, and then the 2.5 years with the new staff, and, kind of get to be a part of the beginning of what Pitt is now. And so, and obviously, I mean, we've talked about my story. Like I was there as a backup, essentially in the 3 role pretty much the entire time. And, that there's obviously everybody wants to play. I mean, there was never a time where I was like content with not playing. I go out trying to be the guy that's on the field every day, but you come to a point where you understand where you are in the team, in the kind of within the culture,
depth chart.
I guess. Yeah. And so, what we established and what the new staff established was kind of a culture where everybody had a role and everyone knew their role and everyone was made aware of their role. And that's extremely important to know that, because if you don't, that's when people can it becomes more individualistic. And then that's, it's all about me and, my playing time and what's happening with me. And then, so that's not what was developing at Pitt. And that's not what's there now. It's all about for the good of the group. And so, being in that, like I understood my role and, I did my best to still, try to get those minutes on the field, but I also knew what I needed to do on and off the field if I wasn't going to be the guy either.
Right.
And so, being aware of that, and that, like, that's kind of, and I say all the time, my year at Westchester would not have happened had I not been at Pitt for that 4 years of not playing at all. Even without playing, I still got to develop into the keeper that played in the Division II national championship. And so, I mean, that's
and
and
I'm going to go on
top
of that there. And when we came in, as Will said, you know, Will and I had many conversations, right, of, you know, where he needed to be better as a goalkeeper, what his role ultimately was when you know, I found out who Will was. But the one thing is, Will showed up every day, and Will gave everything to the team. You know, he's kind of cliche, but he was the ultimate team player, right? Anything we asked of him, he did. He showed up every day and competed. You know, he's the guy that is a major part of why our culture is today what it is, because what we asked of him, he did. You know, he brought other people along. You know, I joke with Will all the time. It was the start of martial fitness, you know, because you know, in that sense, you know, at a point where we came in, you got to watch what you eat. You got to, you know, get a little fitter in different things. And, you know, those are some early observations I had with Will, along with some individual playing things. But, you know, Will was a guy that showed up every day. He worked extremely hard. He knew where he stood in the team, and he understood his role. And he knew that it would probably take something for him to get on the field. You know, some injuries or something, or, you know, where he was and where we were at the time. You know, so, you know, for me, what Will's become from when I first walked in the door to where he is today, I couldn't be more proud of him, you know. And when we had the conversation, you know, after his senior year, and he had one more year of eligibility to play, you know, should he stay on at Pitt and start his master's there, or move on and play? It was, Will, what decision do you want? What do you want to do? Because we'll gladly keep you here, but if you want to play, you're going to have to go elsewhere, right? If you want to be the number 3 goalkeeper, you can stay here, and we're not kicking you out the door. And the conversation that Will and I had was very, very frank. He's had a very frank conversation with Coach Vidovich, and for Will's best interest, you know, moving on, getting his grad school paid for, playing for, you know, Westchester in Division III, and having the opportunity to play Division II. Sorry, you know, my apologies.
I had to do that for Will.
You know, was an unbelievable thing. And obviously it's a Cinderella story for him, is that he came back and played in the national championship game back in his hometown. You know, but, you know, we picked up the phone. We talked to the coach there, you know, on his behalf, because of what he did each and every day, you know. And it's an important piece to know that for all the goalkeepers out there, you know, it's like Will showed up every day, and he was the character kid that we wanted in the locker room, had in the locker room. He saw many guys come and go in this locker room for many reasons, and most of them that they didn't fit into what we were doing or want to be a part of what we were doing, and more guys come in that, you know, started that culture change. But Will and that group were the first guys that did it.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's awesome, and I love hearing it. We got time for one more, and we're gonna have to go kind of quick on it because I got unfortunately another appointment for adoption stuff, starting in about a minute. But we can give this one a couple minutes, and then I might pop out and have you close this out.
Oh yeah.
Put you on the spot. So we'll end with this, and I think we'll come back and we'll have another conversation whenever you get some time again, because I think there's just so much good stuff we can talk about. But kind of last thing, if you could give, you know, maybe 1 or 2 things for a young goalkeeper out there, you know, who's maybe a sophomore, junior, right in that, getting that front end of that recruiting window during this kind of crazy COVID time. 1 or 2 recommendations for them that they can do to really kind of set themselves up, you know, to market themselves, you know, as a prospect, you know, if they've got the tools, and even if they don't, like what can they really do to, you know, prepare themselves?
First of all is do the work, right? Get on the websites of the colleges that you want to go to, find the coaches, send them an email, right? Get them some game film, get them some training film as part of that. You know, that's the first and foremost thing. It's in your hands to put yourself out there. This country is big. You know, we live in Pittsburgh. There may be the best goalkeeper fit for Pittsburgh in the middle of Iowa that I've never seen, you know, but I don't know about them until they put themselves out there to me. And then, you know, have your coaches call on your behalf. You know, get them to reach out through contacts that they have, or finding some way there. If they think that you're the right fit for Pitt, then, you know, have them reach out as well. You know, I think those are two things that you can do. In this COVID era, you have to have video. So tape a training session, cut up some game film, find a way to get yourself some film out to the coaches. In Division I, we can't go out right now until January 1st. Some of the other divisions, 2 and 3, can be out there on the road now. And I know a lot of them are. I was on a conversation with a coach in both of those divisions in the last 2 days. You know, but we can't be out there. So how do you put yourself out there is getting game film, you know, and getting some things out there. So really putting yourself on the radar of the coaches is the first part. Following up and trying to at least have a conversation with those guys, or you know, in most people, you know, myself or not, will watch everything that comes through and try to filter through whether they're a fit for our university or not.
Yeah, I think that's important to remember too, is that, like, as much as you might think that what you're putting out there is not going to get seen or replied to or read, like, do it anyway, because I feel like most of my colleagues, my contemporaries, people like you, they actually do. They care about what they're doing. They make a real effort to read every email and to watch the video, and, you know, so can't stress enough how important it is. But you got to do the work. You got to sell yourself. You got to, you know, get good with your iPhone, get good with your GoPro, edit video, shoot video. Like, it's the time that we're in for everything. It's not just, I mean, it's going to be the way the world is run, you know, moving forward. So everybody's got to be good at it. So do the work now. It's only going to help you. I've got to go. I'm going to step out of the meeting. Will, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to let you, if you guys want to talk one more thing or want to go, this will be the best inning the show's ever had.
Yeah.
Mike, thanks, man.
Thanks for having me,
I'll talk
Hunter,
to you
man.
soon. I'm sorry, guys. I got to go.
See ya.
This has been awesome. Wrap it up.
All right. We'll see you. All right. So I got nothing else. I think we kind of ran through all the questions. So, Coach Behonick, thanks for joining us on GK for free. And everybody else listening, thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure we'll have you on again. And I'm sure I'll see you soon. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, we can't come watch games. It's a bummer too, because I had so much fun coming and watching last fall. And you know, be watching from afar, ESPN Plus and whatnot. Couple big
ACC Network, ESPN Plus. That's where you can find them now. So
yeah, definitely. And so Notre Dame next, right?
Notre Dame on Saturday night. So we take off tomorrow to head to South Bend to play a very good Notre Dame team. So we're ready for the challenge, and we look forward to the game on Saturday.
Awesome. Yeah, best of luck. I'm excited to watch. And
thanks for having me, Will. And as always, we'll stay in touch, and look forward to being back with you guys at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again. Have a good one.
You too. Take care.